Like to call the board of the Lee County Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Please, Commissioner Trevor.
Bruce Forster,
Here.
Fred Earl,
Here.
Mike Pratt,
Here.
Glenn Hughes,
Here.
Rex Meyer.
I would like to, thank Dean Volpe for all his service, for the time that he has spent on the zoning board. He was not very appointed to the board this year. Rex Meyer has been appointed for full-time position, or not, a regular board member, and you appointed for. Thanks to all people for. Next. Next thing that we need to do is the approval of the previous minutes from March 3rd, March 9th, March 14th, March 16th, 21st, and 22nd. Move to approve is presented. We have a motion and a second. And all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
You two is not, or sooner than not able to hear you, if you guys could make sure you're speaking.
Okay.
I'm speaking into the mic. But the mic's not working.
Is yours working, Mr. Chairman? No. Just a minute.
Can you pull out the number?
22.
Try to do.
Okay. Ready again now?
Try to do.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Oh, mine's working now.
Mine's working now. Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, Alice.
As far as a motion to adjourn pursuant to the county board's approval, there are none. And just petition 21-P-1586 Sauk Valley Hydrogen will go to the county board on 4/21. With that, we now convene the public hearing as to the GSG Wind LLC's petition for special use as to the components of a wind energy system, all proposed to lay within Brooklyn, Lee Center, and Sublette townships here in Lee County. First, however, under our rules, this body is permitted to engage the services of an independently contracted facilitator to conduct these proceedings. I will now entertain a motion to engage retired Judge Tim Slavin as the facilitator for the evidentiary argument in the fact-finding phases of this hearing.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will now turn the hearing over to that facilitator, Judge Slavin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Lee County ZBA. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's healthy, remaining safe. My name is indeed Tim Slavin, and I'm a retired circuit judge, now engaged as an independent contractor to what is called facilitate this hearing. I have no adjudicatory responsibilities. I am not for or against any particular position. I am a neutral. I am here, hopefully, however, to add some process, organization, efficiency, and flow to these proceedings. Excuse me. This is indeed GSG Wind LLC's amended petition, Lee County number 22P 1591, for a special use permit to what is called repower an existing wind energy conversion system, acronym WEX, in Brooklyn, Lee Center, and Sublet Townships here in Lee County. As shown by certificates of publication, notice of this hearing was published in the Amboy News, the Mendota Reporter, and the Sauk Valley News, all on March 23rd, less than just about 2 weeks ago. Mailed notices to adjoining property owners within 1/2 mile of the proposed project were also sent by United States Postal Service certified mail delivery. First of all, hoping you all understand, all of our Zoning Board of Appeals session tonight will be taken up by organizational matters as we set some ground rules, do some preliminary scheduling, and work through any technical or practical protocols we have planned to accommodate everyone. Initially, as opposed to the last almost 2 years of hearings, there are no longer any COVID-related masking or social distance requirements in our state. That does not mean any of us should not be sensitive to possible risks to our friends, neighbors, and fellow attendees. As such, I simply encourage all to wear a mask and maintain distances when practical, and certainly to be respectful of others' desire to do so. In addition to this former courtroom, I was going to say this, but I didn't check. Is there a space in the rear jury room if somebody wants to use it? Okay. In addition to this former courtroom, there is a space in the rear former jury deliberation room where attendees can watch, listen, and participate in the proceedings on the Zoom remote video conferencing platform. I hope this all helps everyone feel medically and comfortable, and if not, one can also participate from your home, office, or other remote location on that Zoom platform. Or while not being able to participate, one can also watch and listen on YouTube. The meeting ID and password, the Zoom platform allows an interested party to actually participate. It is interactive. One may not only see and hear what is taking place, but when appropriate stage comes, one may ask a witness questions, call a witness, testify oneself, or give a closing comment. The Zoom meeting ID is 915-3923-9154. And the password is 209840. That meeting ID and password will remain the same throughout this hearing. Further, in an attempt to try to be as transparent and inclusive as possible, we are also streaming this proceeding on YouTube. However, YouTube is not an interactive platform. On it, one can only watch and hear what is being said during the hearing, but not participate. As to YouTube, on your computer or cell phone, use your browser, go to www.youtube.com. In the search bar, type Lee County IL, short for Illinois, Zoning Board of Appeals. And there's no need to be concerned with upper lowercase letters. This should bring up a list of Lee County ZBA YouTubes. Input or select the date. Assuming you want tonight, you put in 4/7/22, and voila, you should be seeing us here in the hearing room. However, please be advised that this YouTube feed will, because of those cyberspace thingies, have a short real-time delay. In case you're not a techno geek, for assistance with any of these things, you may call Ms. Duffy's technical assistance hotline, 815-973-3449. Now, for a bit more substance, as I have alluded, there are two groupings of attendees as to this Zoning Board of Appeals hearing as it moves forward. One bunch I refer to as necessaries. These are people who must, as a practical matter, attend this hearing in person. They consist of your hardworking, practically volunteer Zoning Board of Appeals members, including its newest addition, Mr. Meyer, Ms. Duffy, your county's outstanding zoning officer, her alternate energy coordinator, Alice, petitioner's attorney, Kyle Berry, who's seated in the front row with one of his representatives, your adroit state's attorney, Charlie Boonstra, at any given time, of course, a witness, myself, and finally, hardly but not least, our hardworking and skilled court reporter, Callie. The other group I call interested parties. These are those of you folks who are with us either in the building or remotely on Zoom or YouTube because you simply want to observe your county government at work, or beyond that, you have a particular interest in the proceedings. The next process I will try to explain is the way in which interested parties participate. I emphasize, please know that everyone will have that opportunity for the benefit of all. And I want to provide the opportunity to participate in a manner that is orderly and as efficient as possible. However, because of the electronic filtering, my usual process becomes even more central, and I will try to flesh that out more in my presentation tonight as we move through our time together in the coming weeks. There are many possible reasons for an interested party's appearance this evening and during subsequent sessions, whether in person or remotely. You could be a member of the public who is joining us simply as a citizen and spectator. That's great. A member of the public who wants to be heard. This does not necessarily mean someone who is absolutely for or absolutely against the requested special use, but someone who wants to participate. If you are such a person, you will fall into any one or more of the following three subcategories. A, you want to give testimony. This means that you desire under oath to have you or a witness of your calling to testify to facts relevant to the board's eventual decision. Such is not the time to describe your feelings or announce your opinion, but to aver facts, and you are subject to cross-examination. Everyone so wishing to testify will be given one opportunity to do so. B, you could be a person who wants to be able to cross-examine witnesses, but please, that is just to ask questions of a particular witness, not to argue with him or her. Everyone so wishing to cross-examine will be given one opportunity to cross-examine each and every witness. Or C, you could be participating because you want to make a closing statement or a public comment. Then is the opportunity for a speech to tell the board how you feel or give them your opinion based on the facts adduced during the whole hearing process as to what their decision should be. During this closing statement or public comment stage, one cannot allege new facts. When one thinks about it, the reason for that's pretty simple. The two most important parts of adducing the truth of matters at a hearing are missing then. One, a person is not under oath when merely giving a public comment, nor is one subject to cross-examination during that time. Everyone so wishing to give a closing statement will be given one opportunity to do so. For those of you joining us on the Zoom platform this evening or in the future, that interactive software allows an interested party to indicate a desire when the time comes to ask questions of a witness, to present one's own witness, to testify oneself, or to give a closing statement or make a public comment. So, when I indicate the time has come to begin one of those interested party stages, I will ask for participation from the Zoomers, whether here in the old courthouse or at a more remote location. If one is video conferencing, one simply clicks on the icon at the bottom center of the Zoom screen labeled participants. And from the options that then appear, click raise hand. If one is remotely teleconferencing, in other words, not using video, probably on your cell phone, while remaining connected, one hits the star or asterisk symbol on your keypad. And then so the star and asterisk symbol, and then the Arabic numeral number 9 on your phone. Either way, we should then see any raised hands, and I will call on each raised hand. However, we won't be able to do so on a first raised, first come basis. So calling on the raised hands will probably be done randomly by referring to the name, email address, or last 4 digits of a phone number that appear on our display here in the hearing room. Also, written communications sent in advance of this hearing or any written materials intended as something for the board to consider is subject to board rule Article 5, Section 12, that 8 copies be provided. Any communications received that do not comply with this requirement may not be considered by the board. In that vein, I have tonight received a copy of an agriculture mitigation agreement, agriculture impact mitigation agreement, AMA, and an amendment to that agreement, which was executed a couple of days ago, which means it now statutorily conforms to the requirement that the AMA be in place before the hearing begins. I will now review the chronological progress of the hearing. I know that the narration that follows is really boring and tedious, but please, reciting it is for everyone to feel comfortable and not have to worry that you will not have a fair and complete opportunity to participate. But at the same time, to alert you when the 3 distinct opportunity forms of participation will present. The applicant has the burden of initially going forward. Accordingly, its agent or attorney may make an opening remark. Then the applicant presents evidence, one witness or document at a time. I will place each witness under oath or affirmation. After each applicant witness, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, and members of the ZBA first, and then interested parties, both on-site and remote, have the opportunity to cross-examine, that is, ask questions of that witness. But please, that is only the time for questions directed to that particular witness. After the applicant's evidence, the zoning officer has the opportunity to present witnesses and documents. I will place each of her witnesses under oath. After any zoning officer witness, then first the petitioner, then the state's attorney, and then members of the ZBA, and finally interested parties, both on-site and remote, will have the opportunity to cross-examine each of those witnesses. And once again, that's a reminder I'm going to probably say again and again, please, this is just the time for questions directed to the witness testifying. After the applicant and zoning officer have presented their respective evidence, then interested parties may present their evidence, one witness or document at a time. I will place each such witness under oath or affirmation. After each interested party witness, the applicant, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA, and other interested parties have the opportunity to cross-examine each one of those witnesses. Then the applicant has the opportunity to offer rebuttal witnesses or documents one at a time, and around the horn we go again. If the applicant does present any rebuttal witnesses, interested parties may present surrebuttal witnesses one at a time, and so on. If, however, the applicant does not present any surrebuttal evidence after interested parties have finished their evidence, then the evidentiary portion of the hearing is at an end. Finally, the applicant is given the initial opportunity for closing remarks, and then interested parties will be given one opportunity each for closing statements, public comments, or speeches, whichever term you prefer. All of this is simply a process designed to give all a chance to be heard in a thorough but orderly fashion. There are some very minor sub rules, after which I promise I will be finished boring you any further. Each session has a time limit under the zoning board rules of 2.5 hours. However, we certainly don't want to cut off anybody right in the middle of something, so I will certainly make a reasonable effort to let someone finish a particular stage when the time limit has been reached, or if there is little time remaining at the end of a stage, I may simply continue the session rather than starting on another stage. I also have, for everyone's benefit, the discretion to call for short recesses. Under the zoning board rules, I have the duty to rule on the admissibility of evidence. While the strict judicial rules of evidence do not apply, I will exercise some equitable control of what is being presented with or without an objection. We do and will continue to have a court reporter taking down what is said during the proceedings. I ask all to be mindful of her job. She cannot take down 2 people talking at once. She cannot take down nodding heads or other gestures. And while I know how very skilled she is, there is a limit to how fast a person can talk, including yours truly, and expect her to keep up. I do please ask for civility and decorum. This is certainly a public forum, but please be respectful of all who consider it important enough to be here. I ask to refrain from displays of approval or disapproval. And as now with all public gatherings, I request that you either turn off your cell phone or at least put them on silent. Lastly, your zoning board of appeals, these fine, hardworking, and practically volunteer gentlemen act as finders of fact, much akin to a jury during this hearing. In that role, their decisions during the last stage of the proceeding, the findings of fact and recommendations, are based on the sworn testimony, admitted exhibits, and closing statements or public comments they received during the process. They are your friends, your neighbors, your fellow citizens of Lee County. So please appreciate and respect their role as we move through the days and weeks ahead. I ask you not to put them in a compromised position by lobbying them or having extra hearing conversations or correspondence until the entire hearing, including their decisions, have been completed. In fact, they have been asked to avoid these appearances of impropriety by politely telling an interested party something like, "I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to discuss the matter until the ZBA's work of finding of facts and making recommendations is completed." Thank you for your kind understanding in all of these regards. Okay, now to some really boring details. First thing, for the record, I will note in presence in the hearing room tonight of the ZBA Chair, Mr. Forrester, its Vice Chair, Mr. Burrow. Mr. Hughes is present, Mr. Pratt's present, Mr. Myers present. Zoning Officer Duffy is present. Alternative Energy Coordinator Alice is present. State's Attorney Boonstra is present. Attorney for the petitioner, Kyle Berry, is present with one of his client's representatives. Court reporter is present, and of course I am. That makes 12 necessaries. I note the presence of, at least presumptively, 7 interested parties here in the old Lee County Courthouse third floor hearing room. I don't think there's anybody back in the jury room, is there? And on Zoom, we have, how many else? And we have 7 attendees on Zoom. Okay, very good. Now, gentlemen, if you'll put out your diaries, we're going to go through some days. You may wonder why we're not covering a number of days in April between days when the courtroom's not available, staff are not available. The days April days got shortened. So if you say, "Hey, Tim, how come not that day?" Well, it's because one or more people couldn't be here or the courtroom's not available. So I'm going to start with this coming Tuesday, April 12th. And I'll go down the line. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt.
Yeah, I thought we had a zoning meeting and that, yeah.
Okay. Well, that one's out the door. All right, Wednesday, the 13th. Let's start again. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Yes. Mr. Meyer.
Yes.
Covered that. Mr. Berry, you and yours.
Yes.
And Kelly, that's okay with you, right? We got your days. All right. Thursday, the 14th. Do you guys want to do 3 days in a row here?
Well, at this point,
we're only 2.
If it's raining,
If it's raining, right? Well, no, it'd be the 12th, you've already got a hearing.
Well,
Yeah.
I was thinking in terms of that, but you're right.
Yes, the 14th is fine. Go for it.
Well, all right. Mr. Forrester,
Yes.
we're talking about Thursday, the 14th. Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barry, you and yours.
Probably not. I think I have another hearing in another town.
Yeah, I think these guys will applaud that. That'll prevent three hearings in a week. All right. Then we're gonna move, we gotta jump 2 weeks. Tuesday, the 26th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow, Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
and Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Okay, Wednesday, the 27th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barry, and your client.
No.
Thursday, the 28th is out now. Wow. Yes, sir.
28,000.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to jump to May. Wednesday, May 4th. Mr. Forrester,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barry, you and yours.
Yes.
And, okay. Excuse me, while I make some notes here. Okay, Monday, May 9th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barry, you and yours.
Yes.
Wednesday, May 11th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Unsure at this time.
and Mr. Meyer.
No.
Right, and Mr. Barry, you and yours.
Yes.
Thursday, May 12th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barry, you and yours.
Yes.
Well, I've only got 4 of those I can truly say, okay. I always say it this way, these dates are available. That does not mean necessarily that those are the dates on which we're going to have a hearing. I assure you that before the close of any hearing date, we'll make sure we announce what the continued session is. But available dates are Tuesday, the 20th, let's see, Wednesday, the 13th, Tuesday, the 26th, Wednesday, May 4th, Monday, May 9th, and Thursday, May 12th. That's just as it stands now. Is there anything else, Ms. Duffy, that needs to be covered at the moment?
Starting time on these.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Do I understand your rhythm is that during April, it's still 6 o'clock, but May it moves to 7? Is that?
I'd prefer 7.
Yeah, I think it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean,
Yes.
are you going to violate your great grandfather's edict that you don't plant before May 1st, but that's up to you. You guys just seriously want to start at 7 from going
Okay.
forward? Okay. 7 o'clock, starting the next session.
Hang on. There's
Sure.
Still discussion.
Well, The 13th would be probably okay, but yeah, I don't know whether we want to start and switch the whole hearing process. I think it'd be
Well,
simple.
I don't think changing the time makes any difference, as long as we
Any
announce it.
difference.
The 13th, 6 o'clock's okay? All right. 6.
6,
So-
13th and 7
Right.
thereafter.
So I'm going to continue this session until April 13th at 6 PM. Once again, Old Lee County Courthouse, third floor courtroom. Then we'll deal with the other days after that, but they'll start at 7. The next available date after that's the 26th, even though Mr. Meyer can't be, we got to get some of them in. Okay. Very good. Continue to, like I said, April 13th, 6 o'clock, same place, same time, same channel. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Back to me. Okay.
Break.
Want to take a short break? We can. Let's take a 10-minute break. Be back here at 20 up. swear you in again.
Jared M. Zellhofer.
I guess I'll start with, we have a copy of the letter that you got from the health department. Is that correct?
It's the one addressed to you.
If I may, real quick,
That's fine.
my understanding, I did receive this from the health department. I've spoken with Jennifer Cole from the health department. She indicated, and let me back up, I'm sorry, from our last meeting, we met with the health department. There was some discrepancy between what the code was requiring Mr. Zellhofer to do with regard to the septic system. At one point, the health department was requiring him to install a new septic system. That was not the case. We met with the health department. Both Dee and Charlie were at that meeting. The Lee County Health Department reached out to their state contacts and they agreed that the current septic system could possibly remain at the property. Mr. Zellhofer needed to provide certain details about the number of employees in his business. And then also the septic system needed to be sized. So the health department, as I understand it, could determine the flow rate and whether or not the septic system needed to be enlarged to accommodate the use of the property. Mr. Zellhofer's contacted a contractor to come out and size the septic tank. The weather's not exactly been cooperative with that. However, we have supplied the other information to the health department to help them make their determination. The other outstanding issue would be the floor drain at the property. So we've talked with the health department. They've determined what he needs to do to bring the floor drain into compliance with the code. Mr. Zellhofer's agreeable to doing so. Again, he'd use the same contractor to do that. We're asking that he just be allowed 60 days to bring those into compliance and that those be made a condition of the special use permit. And he fully understands that if he would not bring that into compliance within that 60-day period, that would result in a revocation of a special use if it was granted.
Any questions from the board?
No, that actually addressed a couple of questions I did have, so thank you, Courtney.
Can you state again what you just said about the drain? Let me make sure I got that right.
My understanding is that the floor drain needs to be properly routed pursuant to the code. So that's what the health department has come out and said.
In this letter.
Yes, and that's what, I mean, we're agreeable to doing that. We just need time to do it.
No further question.
Any questions from Dee? Charlie? No, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna come up. The report, the drainage and detention report, those, or that report required some, I believe it was 12-inch outlets for the stormwater into the detention pond, or outlets into the tile for the detention pond. Have you, and I know we're just getting into spring weather, so, but have you arranged for, have you got a contractor for the work to be done there?
We'll be doing that work ourselves. I actually have a drainage easement written up that I'm presenting this weekend. We have a Circle F Board of Directors meeting this weekend. All the family will be there. I'm going to present this easement and also broach the subject you just mentioned about the work that I have to do there.
Okay. Then the other part of that was included in that drainage and detention. There was the berm detention area to the south, in the southeast corner of the property, which would be on your existing 4.654
Correct.
acres. Have you started work on that, or what is this? What's the status of that?
No, it's pretty much red clay, so you can imagine what kind of condition the soil is in right now. So there has been no excavation in the south portion.
Okay, so, but there are you have initiated plans or looking at the engineering of that.
Correct. So they told me there was no specific shape, as long as I conformed to the proper amount of volume was their concern, not the shape.
Which was about 3,500. We don't need to be specific, as long as you're aware that.
Yeah, looks like both of them are just under 3,400.
Okay,
Looks like they're real close to the same, about 3,400.
okay. I thought it was somewhere in that area.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. I don't know. Say that again.
Ask if anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody that's on Zoom?
No.
Can we go back to more questions or not? Are we done?
Yeah, no, you can ask more questions if you want.
Can you, and maybe I've missed this along the
Mike,
line.
get to the mic.
Can you give me a list of what your businesses are that are being performed at these sites? And what your total business list would be? You know, the landscaping, the steel manufacturer, anything else? I mean, so, yeah, just give me a list of what you're actually performing there.
Well, you hit two of them. We also have
So say what they are.
so there's the steel manufacturing or building component manufacturing.
Building component manufacturing. Maybe you should sub that a little bit. What's that mean?
Well, components related primarily to ag and residential, but some of the components go into commercial buildings as well.
But I mean, what's a component?
Component, you know, there's roofing components, there's wood components in a building, there's windows, doors. So, you know, each component makes up the entire building.
You're not making windows or doors, though.
No.
Right.
But it's part of the not manufacturing process, those components, but as far as we're selling them out of that same location. So manufacturing and selling of building components, maybe that's a better way to word that.
So that's one.
So, and I'm sorry to butt in, but specifically, what are you manufacturing? You're doing the roofing and siding, if I remember correctly, or am I off on that?
That's predominantly what it is. There are wood components. Sometimes there's bracketry, steel bracketry that's not roofing, you know, bracing, things like that that go into buildings.
Just to follow up, do you build trusses there then, or do your buildings have trusses?
We do not manufacture trusses there.
Do you use trusses in your buildings?
We do. They're manufactured in somewhere else and shipped directly.
So that's your primary business. Or if you rank them, that's your primary business.
Well, I guess that depends if you are talking about years in business, employees, gross sales. So depending how, I would say that's our primary as far as the income.
Okay.
It's not our primary as far as how long we've been doing it.
No, I'm current gross income or cash flow. So what's number two then?
That's probably either the lawn care or we have a small construction crew which facilitates the building components or the sales of the building components.
Lawn care group, and then you have a construction group, and then anything else goes on?
Not that I can, the lawn care landscape obviously involves tree and other types of,
Yeah.
So I would call it more of land services than I would a particular only lawn care or only landscape, but I'd call it more of like a land service.
So do you have any other plans to add businesses?
No, not at this time.
So those three functions are what you currently have on hand and what you're wanting the PUD for.
Right. There is also a very small seasonal, we have a family tradition. My great grandfather about 100 years ago started manufacturing old fashioned English toffee. I do it once a year for Christmas.
Oh, you said toffee?
Yeah, old fashioned
Okay.
English toffee. And that's Prince Castle Cock Robin Ice Cream Company. There's actually Prince Castle here in Dixon. And I continue to do that. This is once a year. We sell that out of that same location as well.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So the additional property you're buying on the north side of the road. What are you gonna do with that? Is it gonna continue to be farmed, or you have plans for it?
Thank you for bringing that up. That was actually one of my questions about the PUD. The current farmers asked that if this PUD goes through and I acquire this additional acreage on the north side of the road, he wanted to know if it could still be farmed. I told him I didn't know the answer to that. So if I have my choice, I would like to continue to farm it. The only reason for actually purchasing is not to necessarily do something there, is to come into compliance with the 10 acres needed for the PUD. So if it's allowable, I would like to continue the portion of it that's being farmed. Yeah, except, well, I meant the tillable acres. The north side also does contain the building with the red roof.
Yeah.
As well. That would be for the business purposes, but
Yeah.
the additional acres that's tillable.
But you're saying you don't see a future of 3 more buildings on that side.
I currently do not know.
I don't know about the farming question. I assume.
Farming question is, you should be able to do that without any problem.
Whether that's legal or not.
As I understand it, there's different use of these, so it's it can be several different uses, so it could be residential in part, which you'll see here, there is a residence located, it can be industrial, commercial, and agricultural, so I believe the answer is yes.
So, yes, you should be able to farm it. Any other further questions?
I gotta bring it up. I was down there today and took a little drive, and behind your, towards the
Mike.
back,
Into the mic.
was down there on your property today. And towards the back, there's the map we got here that was presented as Exhibit A. I don't think shows the gravel that's in the back there. Is that?
Yeah, this is the GIS, which this map is pretty outdated. A lot of those trees and old structures aren't even there anymore. And it's not showing the new parcel, but that's correct. It's a very outdated satellite photo, but it's all that I had to work with.
So there is gravel now further towards the back line of that.
Do you have all of the drawings in front of you? All of the no, this is also old. I believe I drew it in with, give me 1 second.
I think you're looking, are you looking for Exhibit E?
Yeah, if B1. Do you have that, Mr. Pratt?
Yeah.
That's a little bit more accurate of what with the exception of it's not showing a retention basin. Because at that time, we didn't know we had to have one in that corner nor the size.
So here where you're saying truck and trailer storage, that's all gravel now.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Very good. No questions. Go ahead, Glenn or Rex or anybody else.
What's that?
Go ahead. I have no more questions at the moment.
No more questions? All right.
At the moment.
Shall we now start with the findings of facts? Len, you want to start?
Yeah, I've already tried to prepare some drafts, no guarantees on these. I believe Alice, you've got the copies of the drafts, so I'm not going to try and write these things down for you.
Follow along is.
Okay, thank you. Starting with draft number 1, motion being the Lee County Zoning Board of Appeals finds that petition 21-P-1585 was submitted on December 2nd, 2021 for a planned unit development, parentheses, close parentheses, PUD. That would be the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I'll read the next one on the list. Number 2, the Lake County ZBA finds that the petitioner, Mr. Jared Zellhofer, resides near Amboy, Illinois, and owns and operates a business located at 1749 Winding Road, Amboy, Illinois, known as Z-Best Enterprises, Inc., parentheses, Z-Best. Move for that motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, my motion would read, the Lee County ZBA finds that on January 6th, 2022, the petitioner Jared Zellhofer took the witness stand and committed to being bound by all the representations made in the application and statements made under oath during the ZBA hearing.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on that one? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion. The Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner prepared and provided a development plan labeled Appendix A1, a copy of the petition, a copy of the notices that were sent, a copy of the form notice that was sent to all adjacent landowners, a letter from the Lee County Sheriff relating to traffic issues at the petitioner's location and business, a letter of support from the neighbors who reside on Winding Road near petitioner's business, and an email reflecting petitioner's engagement with Bullitt Hoffman and Associates Incorporated, a local engineering consultant firm. That's my motion.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that if the proposed petition 21-P-1585 is approved, the petitioner will purchase the contiguous 5.5 acres of land on the north side of Winding Road and combine with the petitioner's 4.66 acres at 1749 Winding Road will meet the required 10 acres to be designated as a planned unit development for the purpose of manufacturing and production of steel roofing, lawn care, landscaping services, and general carpentry. That would be the motion. From the draft, there is one minor change. I moved to meet or will meet.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on this one? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on point 6, the Lee County ZBA, I move that the Lee County ZBA finds it through the petitioner's testimony that the property on the north side of Winding Road, parentheses 1760 Winding Road, parentheses, currently houses a lumber and equipment storage building for his business, a trailer storage area, and a truck vehicle parking area.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner stated that there are no plans for any expansion on the undeveloped area north side of Winding Road, 1760 Winding Road.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on that one? The only discussion I would make is that he said tonight he would like to farm that piece. Anyway, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner showed a depiction of the property at 1749 Winding Road with its existing buildings, the parking area, the truck loading zone, material yard, customer parking, and truck trailer storage based on the current use of the property. That's my motion. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified the depiction of the property at 1749 Winding Road shows the locations of the private well, the private septic system, and proposed signage, as there is currently no sign for the business.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, moving on to point 10. I move that Lee County ZBA finds that petitioner has shown in the submitted development plan the proposed property lines, which identifies the location of semi-impervious surfaces on the portion of the proposed PUD that is part of 1760 Winding Road, parentheses, north side of Winding Road.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner produced a depiction of the property showing the existing drainage and indicated that the water direction flow and approximate topography for the property.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, the Lee County ZBA finds that the aerial photo in the development plan submitted by the petitioner shows the main building, a conglomeration of smaller buildings located on 1749 Winding Road, and the approximate square footage of each of the smaller buildings that have been combined together to form the main building. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner did provide signed statements for driveway access permits by both the Amboy and May Township Road Commissioners, but based on the requirements of a PUD, no preliminary impact reports were submitted because the properties have already been developed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Comment? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on our point 14, I move that the Lee County ZBA finds that in Appendix G of the development plan, a copy of an email from Lee County zoning administrator to the petitioner showing that based on conversations with the Lee County engineer Dave Anderson, a traffic study report would not be required as the properties have already been developed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, number 15, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner submitted a letter from the Lee County Sheriff confirming there had been no traffic or safety concerns related to the business over the last 23 years.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Lee County CBA finds that the petitioner stated he spoke to landowners along Winding Road about any concerns related to traffic safety and road conditions, and has submitted a signed letter of neighborhood support for the proposed PUD. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next motion being, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner submitted a letter from the Amboy Fire Department that had two recommendations instructing the petitioner that all the open space areas on the property shall be properly mitigated for field/grass fire protection to be maintained yearly, and was instructed to complete an Amboy Fire Sites survey for any needed response. But based on the requirements of a PUD, no preliminary impact reports were submitted because the properties have already been established.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on point 18, I move the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner submitted a letter of support for the proposed planned unit development from the Amboy Community School District number 272. But because the properties are developed, a preliminary impact report was not obtained from the school district.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, number 19, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified that the area identified as parking towards the north of 1749 Winding Road property is employee parking, and the area identified as parking just east of the main building is customer parking. The petitioner explained that there are approximately 10 to 12 employee parking spaces and approximately 6 customer parking spaces. And the area identified as truck loading is where delivery trucks, FedEx, material delivery, et cetera, come in to unload their deliveries.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comment or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified that the area identified as truck and trailer storage at the 1749 Winding Road property is where delivery trucks and trailers for ZBES are stored, which consist of farm trucks, parts trucks, and approximately 5 or 6 main trucks for the steel product, as well as dump trucks and bucket trucks. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on. The next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that during testimony, the petitioner identified Appendix B1, an area on the development plan in 1749 Winding Road as the material yard where finished product and materials are stored until they are loaded and delivered to customers.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on number 22, I move the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner demonstrated in appendices D1 and D2 that the retaining walls on 1749 Winding Road and 1760 Winding Road are identical and made out of precast 2x2x4 concrete blocks. The petitioner testified that the retaining wall at 1749 Winding Road was to stop erosion and allow the catch basins to catch all the runoff water, and retaining wall at 1760 Winding Road was to prevent erosion and stop runoff onto the tillable portion of the property.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any comment or questions on this one? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, before the next motion gets read, I wanted to get a clarification from Mr. Zellhofer. In our minutes, there was description of the retaining wall that was installed at 1749. I don't know whether it was a misspeak, a misprint in the minutes, or, but as it was in the minutes, it indicated there was a retaining wall installed on the eastern property line. And I was just trying to remember if that was an additional retaining wall that you built over on that east side, kind of in the back corner where the retention pond is probably going, or between you, or was that something that was either mistyped or misspoken?
Well, there's nothing on the easterly side, so I think maybe that was, there is one along the southern edge, which is, it's not along the southern edge anymore because we acquired the additional 1.3 acres. So it might have been talking about a wall that was there, which is going to be removed now that that's not the property line anymore.
Okay, well, although I think maybe based on what you're saying, and I thought that was the case, I think that probably either in discussion, it was misstated as eastern rather than western, or it was mistyped. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And so that was installed on the retaining wall that was installed quite a while ago that deals with the catch basins was actually on the one referring to the western.
If that's correct. If you're talking about the one with the catch basins, that should read west, not east.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clarification, so.
Mr. Chairman, number 23, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds the petitioner submitted Appendix D1 of the developmental plan, an aerial view of 1749 Winding Road, and the area of land located to the east of the main building located at 1749 Winding Road, at which time the petitioner testified by showing a depiction of the properties, existing drainage indicating the water direction flow and approximate topography of the property. The petitioner also testified that several years ago, a retainer wall was installed on the western property line at 1749 road, along with 2 catch basins and 2 independent tile lines that lead from the property down a steep and highly erodible hill into a retention basin located on the edge of the timber away from the productive farm ground. According to the testimony, the petitioner stated this was done on the petitioner's own accord years ago to help with any erosion in watershed that is caused by the development located at the top of the hill. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner identified in Appendix D1, the tile lines that were installed did not have a legal easement onto the adjacent property, but did have permission from the adjacent landowner, Circle F Farms, as it improved the erosion problem they were having. My motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Moving on, the next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner has no plans for any additional green spaces, trees, landscaping, or visual buffers for the property and/or area between the business property and the adjacent residential property.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Uh, 26, Lee County ZBA finds that petitioner's testimony that the residence located at 1755 Winding Road has its own septic system, but is a shared well agreement with petitioner. Said shared well agreement was presented by testimony only.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, number 27, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds the petitioner testified that he worked with the Lee County Health Department in approximately 2010 regarding the existing septic on the property at 1749 Winding Road. At that time, the petitioner was told the tank was of adequate size and proper construction to serve the house and the sinks and restrooms of the business. However, the petitioner was required to add 200 feet to the septic field. The petitioner further testified that there is 1 bathroom in the residence and 2 bathrooms located in the main building, and the number of employees has not increased.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner identified the locations of the LP tanks located at 1749 Winding Road. One is located on the north side of the main building, one located south of the shipping container structure, and an isolated fueling station located north of the customer parking area. The fueling station has LP refueling for forklifts, gasoline, and diesel. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Draft number 29, the motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner has no plans to have water or electricity running to the structure located at 1760 Winding Road.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions?
I just wondered if Glenn, if we ought to change the wording a little bit there, maybe say that the finds that the petitioner stated that he has no plans to have water, electricity. Just to make it a little clearer.
I have finds that the petitioner stated,
That he has no plans to have.
I have no problem with that minor change.
So would you restate your petition again?
The Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner has stated, finds that the petitioner stated he has no plans to have water or electricity running to the structure located at 1760 Winding Road.
And we have a second on,
Second.
okay. Any comments, further comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
On point 30. I move that the Lee County ZBA finds the petitioner indicated there will be no street or parking lighting on the property at 1749 Winding Road. Only lighting on the exterior building that is dusk to dawn, vapor lighting, and there are plans to add a light on the north side of the building for truck loading, for the truck loading area.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, draft number 31, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified that there are no future plans to building any overhead structure for the materials yard. However, a racking system may be installed that would have a roof structure just west of the material yard and south of the 1749 Winding Road's main building.
Do we have a second on that one?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner affirmed in testimony that there should not be any activity at the business past 5 p.m. That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
I thought maybe we ought to talk about that a little bit. That seems where that, I don't remember hearing that comment.
Yeah. It was in the minutes. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to restrict him to that. That was what he was indicating was at this time was his hours. So we can address that later on your conditions, whether we want to hold his work hours or not even address those work hours. That was strictly a statement he made
So he did
At the
make, he
time.
did make that statement.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that sounds accurate, but I don't see any reason to restrict it to 5
Yeah,
p.m.
we're just right now stating what he stated, so.
On the other hand, most businesses, if they have a customer standing there, will finish with them whatever time it is. And your employees don't always leave exactly at 5 o'clock.
Well, and that's why I'm not worried about restricting it. I'm just going based on his testimony, so.
All right. So, is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries.
Next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds with regard to noise, the petitioner alleged the manufacturing equipment cannot be heard outside of the building unless the bay doors are open, and noise will occur with the equipment moving the materials from the conveyor to the material yard. Further testimony entailed that the petitioner does not have any equipment that operates at an extreme noise level, and the petitioner stated that any lawn care and landscaping business work is primarily done off-site with no composite compost brought onto the property.
We have the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, on to point 34, I move the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified that the recycling and scrap pickup is on a will call basis and that the material is stored in a 20 to 30 yard dumpster until it is picked up.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, draft number 35, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that through the reading of an email from Brenda Merriman with the Lee County Soil and Water Conservation District, the completion of an EcoCat is a recommendation, not a requirement. Therefore, no EcoCat was submitted.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner entered into evidence a report from the engineering firm of Willett Hoffman and Associates Incorporated titled Drainage and Detention Calculation, a Willett Hoffman report. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next motion being the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner testified to the upgrades that would be needed to be made to existing drainage to bring the property into compliance with the Lee County Code based on the Willett Hoffman report. Improvements will include, but not be limited to, increasing outlet pipes to 12 inches and developing a detention area in the southeast corner of the 1749 Winding Road property.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any commentary? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Lee County ZBA finds that the Lee County engineer Dave Anderson reviewed the Willett Hoffman report in addition to an email from Jeffrey F. Smith, Vice President of Willett Hoffman, which stated, parentheses, the north side of the road having minimal or no effect on the drainage, in parentheses, i.e. that is, in parentheses, quotes rather, excuse me, in parentheses, i.e. 1760 Winding Road, and based on this information, signed off on a Lee County drainage permit.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, draft number 39. My motion reads, the Lee County ZBA finds that through the petitioner's testimony, Z-Best deals primarily with manufacturing of building components such as roofing and siding materials. Should the county board approve the petition 21-P-1585, it is the petitioner's intention to continue to operate Z-Best from the location described in this petition. In further testimony, the petitioner stated there are currently no plans to develop his business or to make it any larger. The petitioner understands he will be restricted to using the property he is requesting to be designated as a PUD as he described in the petition.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, my motion is through the petitioner's testimony and the petition's application and appendices that the Lee County ZBA finds that petition 21-P-1585 would not have any effects on the character of the neighborhood and the surrounding properties.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on. Through the motion being through the petitioner's testimony and the petition's application and appendices that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petition 21-P-1585 would not impose any negative effects on public health, public safety, and/or general welfare.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, moving on to number 42, I move that the petitioners, through the petitioner's testimony and the petition's application and appendices, that the Lee County ZBA finds that petition 21-P-1585 would not have a material effect on traffic conditions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comment? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, my motion reads, through the petitioner's testimony and the petition's application and appendices that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petition 21-P-1585 would not have much of an effect on public utility facilities.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, Make a motion that through the petitioner's testimony and the petition's application and appendices, that the Lee County ZBA finds that petition 21-P-1585 does not carry with it any apparent environmental concerns.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, before we go any farther, I wanted to clarify and see if there was any other findings of facts that any of the other board members considered or wanted it added into this document.
We can use his testimony tonight. So then maybe I'll add one. I can do it on the fly here. Alice? Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner through his testimony testified that his that he created a list of his businesses from most income generating to least as follows. Number one, building, manufacturing, and sales. Number two, land service, including lawn care and trees. Number three, a construction crew. And then number four, the making of seasonal candy.
That's your motion?
My motion, if Alice has got it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any comments? Alice, since that one isn't written down, would you repeat it for us? Pull the microphone down.
The Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner, through his testimony, testified that he created a list of his businesses from most income generating to least. And that list is number one, building and manufacturing sales, two, land service, including lawn care and trees, three, the construction crew, and four, the making of seasonal candy.
Thank you.
I think the last one related to the seasonal candy, I think it's just the sales of candy. I don't know if that makes a difference in your finding, but for what that's worth.
Is it just the sales from that property, or are you making the candy on that property as well?
The sales.
Sale, okay.
That's fine. Make that change, Alice.
That would be another health department issue. So you want to read the modification?
The Lee County ZBA finds that the petitioner, through his testimony, testified that he created a list of his businesses from most income generating to least. And the list is number one, building, manufacturing and sales, two, land service, including lawn care and trees, three, the construction crew, and four, the sales of seasonal candy.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add another finding in based on the information we received tonight. And I'll try and do this on the fly as well, so bear with me. Lee County ZBA finds that based on a letter from Jennifer Kolb of the Lee County Health Department, Mr. Zellhofer needs to, excuse me, in order to be in compliance with Lee County Code, Mr. Zellhofer needs to verify the sizing of the septic system on 1749 Winding Road and to address the drain in the primary building for the business, ensuring that it is properly routed and that is used only to receive water from motorized vehicle. Okay. Used only to receive water from motorized equipment or vehicle washing or to drain melted snow. And shall be increased in size based on the anticipated daily flow. Put a period there and I'll continue. When a maintenance area is adjacent to a parking area, physical barriers such as a raised curb or recessed floor in the maintenance. Okay. Going back, when a maintenance area is adjacent to a parking area, physical barriers such as a raised curb or recessed floor in the maintenance area shall be provided to assure that oil and gas are not discharged to floor drains.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Let her read it.
We'll let her read it, but we'll find out if we have a second and then we'll have her read it back. She's still typing. You're ready?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, but go ahead and read it back to us now.
With the mic.
The Lee County ZBA finds that based on a letter from Jennifer Kolb of the Lee County Health Department, in order to be in compliance with the Lee County Code, Mr. Zellhofer needs to verify the sizing of the septic system on 1749 Winding Road and to address the drain in the primary building for the business, ensuring that it is properly routed and is used only to receive water from motorized equipment or vehicle washing or to drain melting snow, and shall be increased in size based on the anticipated daily flow. When a maintenance area is adjacent to a parking area, physical barriers such as a raised curb or a recessed floor in the maintenance area shall be provided to assure that oil and gas are not discharged to floor drains.
That works. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Then I'll move on to the next motion. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that petition 21P 1585 for a planned unit development be approved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Is there any comments on that? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, for conditions. Can we take a 5 or 10 minute recess to make sure everybody's comfortable and, or wants to address reviews the conditions?
Yeah, we can take a 5-minute break. Take a look.
I think so.
Okay. Ready for conditions?
We're working on conditions now.
Mr. Chairman, on our first condition, we have listed. I move the Lee County ZBA recommends Lee County.
You got to get up to your.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
You can't relax.
I can't relax. All right. We'll start again. For conditions, I move that the Lee County ZBA recommends to Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition shall be that the purchase of the contiguous 5.5 acres of land on the north side of Winding Road shall be combined with the 4.66 acres at 1749 Winding Road and be legally platted into one parcel, and the survey shall be recorded with the Lee County Clerk, and a copy shall be submitted to the Lee County Zoning Office.
Second,
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
I seconded.
You seconded it. Okay. Is there any comments on that? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, my motion reads, the Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a planned unit development is allowed, a condition be the completed Amboy Fire Site Survey for any needed fire or emergency response shall be submitted to the Lee County Zoning Office.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be the petitioner obtain a legal easement drainage agreement with the landowners for the property parcel number 13-21-01-101-006 to the west of the 1749 Winding Road. 2 catch basins and 2 independent tile lines.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments?
It appears that Mr. Zellhofer is actually addressing that with, as you mentioned earlier, that he is addressing those easements with the adjacent farm property.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm gonna submit the easement agreement on this weekend. I guess one question I had, is that a legal requirement for whatever reason, if the easement, legal easement does not go through, but I still have permission? Do I legally have to have the easement for the PUD?
At this point, my position is that you could probably talk to the zoning administrator about it, but it is a condition that we're putting in right now. The concern being that if either property gets sold, whether it's your PUD or the adjacent farm, and there is no longer any family or even amicable relationship there, you've got a real problem, and we potentially could have to close you down the road.
I agree that it would be best to have a written easement setting forth the parties' rights. I just have concerns. I don't know that the zoning board respectfully can force 2 private parties to contract and enter into that legal agreement. But I agree it would clean things up.
Is it already under operation? It's already working, right? The 2 tile.
Yeah, correct. It's been in for a long
But
time.
it also, on that side, also requires the increase of the 6-inch lines to 12-inch lines.
No, that's not accurate. That it's the
Uh,
outlet. There's no outlet in that basin. So they're just talking about the outlet only. We don't have to increase the feed lines.
Oh, the feed line, just the
the outlet.
into them.
Correct.
Okay.
There is no outlet currently. They just want us to put an outlet in it.
And I think that gets referenced later about, it may have been referenced about the outlets, so.
But the drainage is already there. I don't think anybody later can stop the drainage once it's already flowing.
Well,
Mr. Boonstra made the comment that Courtney is correct. We probably don't have a legal base to do that. However, if nothing else, I would just suggest anyway to do something, even if it's a letter between family members that everybody has, that there's a copy of.
It was a good suggestion taken to heart because we prepared a formal easement to get that remedied.
Okay,
And I think it's correct what Mr. Hughes is saying. Even though it's not a condition or it wouldn't be a condition of this, if it's not something that's remedied and it's not something that's taken care of, it's going to make the whole thing moot anyway, because like you said, you're going to go in there and it's going to be shut down anyway.
if we set it up as a condition and let's assume that that he can't get the current agreement, would the zoning administrator have the power to waive that condition, or how would that be addressed?
I don't think that she'd be able to do that just because of the fact it's going to be, if you follow the steps, it's going to be the county board that approves the permit with those conditions. I think it'd have to go back before the county board for them to change that.
Maybe you need to restate the paragraph then. We don't need to obtain a legal easement. Maybe take away the legal for sure. But maybe you need to restate what we demand of an agreement.
Just a drainage agreement.
I guess the question is, do we drop, if that is not an enforceable condition, do we just drop that condition and assume that for the sake of the business and the adjacent property owner that it gets done, or they deal with the consequences either way?
If there's a requirement for them to have to do this for the drainage, if they're unable to do so through an easement or whatever type of legal mechanism they would need to do so in order to accomplish that, then they're not going to be able to proceed forward on anything they have there. So again, this is not going to be something that he'd be able to have that drainage in place if he does not have the mechanism to do so. So I guess what you can say is you're going to make it a condition that he follow any and all regulations as it pertains to health requirements, EPA requirements, whatever that may be, in order to have that drainage that's necessary for the business.
I don't think we should make it a condition because it's already in operation. And I don't think we want to stop this PUD over this. And I don't know we can anyway.
That was motioned and seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for all intents and purposes, we can either vote it up or down. And we've had discussion. If there's no more, I'd call the vote. Call the question.
call the question. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion did not pass.
Okay. Mike, that was you that addressed that, right?
Yeah.
Next condition, the Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the Lee County engineer shall review any proposed drainage upgrades. And basically, let's get, then we'll get to the comment.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments?
That's in there because there is some additional work that's meant to be done. You've already stated, and I didn't know one way or the other whether you were doing it yourself or having it done, but you're doing it yourself. It would be appropriate for, once that work's done, those upgrades, particularly for the detention pond, to have the Lee County engineer review those upgrades and even the outlets to make sure that they meet code. So, but probably I'm more concerned about that detention pond than anything else.
How are you gonna know that they were reviewed?
I either D or Mr. Zellhofer is going to have to contact the county zoning engineer. I mean, I could add in there that documentation be provided to the Lee County zoning administrator.
So when you say proposed drainage upgrades, you're talking about something that he said in testimony that he's going to do, or?
That's part of the drainage and detention plan, yes. Plus any future that he might do. I mean, this is kind of a catch-all, but more particularly, we're trying to address what's already in that drainage and detention plan.
This refers to Will Hoffman's plan.
Yes.
Maybe it ought to. I think it's too broad for any proposed drainage upgrades. Maybe it should say any proposed drainage upgrades presented under testimony or something like that, you know. So, I mean, 5 years from now or 7 years from now, if he's doing something, you know, how are we going to know it? How are we going to, you know, we don't want to make D go out there all the time on that either. So.
Well, actually, I'm going to be on the negative side here. There have been many things that have happened on that property that weren't in compliance. And although I'm looking at particularly the current situation, you're right. If something gets done 5 years from now or 10 years from now, Mr. Zellhofer should be talking to D and the Lee County engineer about any upgrades or any changes, period. But right now, the term upgrade is in there because because we're addressing the current report, drainage and detention report.
I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion either way, but I just curious what your thoughts were on it.
Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion still carries.
Mr. Chairman and Alice, on this next one, I'm gonna make some changes, so stay with me. I'll let you know when I start. Make a motion that the Lee County CBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the petitioner verify to the Lee County Zoning Office and the Lee County Health Department through a certified inspector the exact size of the septic tank at 1749 Winding Road. And bring the floor drain in the main building at 1749 Winding Road up to the requirements of the Lee County Health Department code. You're supposed to repeat it to me.
Well, he eliminated some and added some.
Let's start after and bring the floor drain in the main building at 1749 Winding Road up to the requirements of the Lee County Health Department code. Very, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any other commentary?
Read it back from Alice.
We will have Alice read it back.
The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that any expansion of or addition to the improvements of the PUD, oh wait, I'm reading the wrong one, I'm
I
sorry.
would say you lost it.
Scratch that. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the petitioner verify to the Lee County Zoning Office and the Lee County Health Department through a certified inspector, the exact size of the septic tank at 1749 Winding Road and bring the floor drain in the main building at 1749 Winding Road up to the requirements of the Lee County Health Department code.
That's my motion.
Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, we're on to number 53. I move the Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that any expansion of or addition to the improvements of the PUD, whether on the north side of Winding Road, parentheses 1760 Winding Road, or the south side of Winding Road, 1749, parentheses 1749 Winding Road, requires the approval of the Lee County Zoning Administrator.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any comments?
Mr. Boonstra, you look like you want to say something.
I think this kind of falls back to where we were at before, when we were talking about how if there's going to be any changes that need to be done to the permit itself, if it's being expanded upon, I think they'll have to go through the process of having that approval through the county board. I don't know that it's going to be the zoning administrator that's going to decide that.
My interpretation of this would be if Mr. Zellhofer wants to make any changes to his buildings or anything else, he needs to go through the proper permitting for getting a building permit through the zoning administrator.
Correct, but if it's changing the basic structure of the PUD, that changes everything.
That's totally different.
Yep.
But I think the intent, at least I think the intent had more to do with not building any more buildings without a building permit.
Because this says to the improvements of the PUD.
Okay. So long as it's just, we're talking about getting the proper building permits.
So should we, let's ask that question. Mike, you made this motion. Would you like to
I made the motion.
change it to,
Yeah, I did.
or Craig did? Okay.
What do you want to change?
Basically, that if you're going to make any improvements to the buildings and that you needed to go through the Lee County zoning administrator to get the proper building permits.
But the way it reads, expansion, like Lynn said, expansion or addition to the improvements of the PUD, not the PUD changing itself. So
There,
but you said to add the part about the building permits?
the part about building permits is normally when you're working in a parking
Yeah.
lot and you're going from dirt to gravel, that does not require a building permit. But if you are changing the building and you're gonna put an addition on it or whatever, then you need to get a building permit for that. Any structural change.
Should we just finish up that final sentence and says, or where'd they come from? And say, requires the appropriate permitting. What?
That's fine. Yes.
So instead of saying requires the approval of the Lee County zoning administrator, requires the appropriate permitting.
Correct.
I hate to bring this up, but you say the improvements of the PUD. Really, the PUD is just the agreement. It's not the buildings. So maybe that's where the problem is.
Improvements too, no. Well, and I guess that's where the discussion is, because it says expansion of or addition to the improvements. The improvements would be the physical facilities.
That's what I'm saying. You should maybe leave out the improvements of the PUD, because the PUD is not a building.
PUD is a,
Okay, I see where you're,
Land use development.
okay. So Craig. We have a motion and a second at the moment. Do we want to,
A friendly amendment.
or withdraw or vote it down
or withdraw or vote it down, and then we'll restart with the way it should read? We'll vote on it first, okay?
The way it's written.
The way it's written. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion does not carry. May we get another motion?
Let me just make some changes here and see if I can't put something together.
I think all you gotta do is change the of the POD to the of the property.
Now, I think we can just drop, the improvements, whether on the north. Ooh.
Okay,
Okay, let me give this a try. And at this point, before I think we'll do the draft out loud before we make it a motion. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that any expansion of or addition to the improvements, whether on the north side of Winding Road, 1760 Winding Road, or the south side of Winding Road, 1749 Winding Road, requires the appropriate permitting per Lee County ordinance. Alice, do you need? Yeah, I think it sounds okay.
The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that any expansion of or addition to, whether on the north side of Winding Road, 1760 Winding Road, or the south side of Winding Road, 1749 Winding Road, requires the appropriate permitting per the Lee County ordinance.
That sounds reasonable to me.
okay. Is that a form of a motion then?
I will then make that a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other commentary? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I think I'm gonna probably grab hold of the next few conditions. I'm the one that added them in, so. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that within 60 days of the date of the Lee County Board approval, Zellhofer shall have the septic tank at the premises sized and shall submit the information to the Lee County Health Department. Quotations, Health Department, close quotations. The department shall then advise Zellhofer if any additional work is necessary to the septic system in order for the septic system to meet the current use of the premises. Zellhofer shall follow the determination of the department to ensure that the septic tank located at the premises is appropriately sized to accommodate the present uses of the premises. Unless good cause is provided, Zellhofer's failure to do so within the time frame prescribed herein will result in the revocation of the special use permit.
Did I see that or? we-
That was. Mr. Chair, do you want that reread since she has that now?
Yes.
The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that within 60 days of the date of the county board approval, Zellhofer shall have the septic tank at the premises sized and shall submit the information to the Lee County Health Department. The department shall then advise Zellhofer if any additional work is necessary to the septic system in order for the septic system to meet the current use of the premises. Zellhofer shall follow the determination from the department to ensure that the septic tank located at the premises is appropriately sized to accommodate the present use of the premises. Unless good cause is provided, Zellhofer's failure to do so within the time frame prescribed herein will result in the revocation of the special use permit.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments?
I just, it may sound petty, but I wonder if you should change the, you use Zellhofer several times. I wonder if that should be the petitioner instead of a person.
That would be fine.
I have no problem with that change in that manner.
Any other comments? Okay. Want to read it back with the, we'll just change it with the petitioner in there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We need to, we're already at our 2-hour time limit, 2.5-hour time limit.
No, we aren't. We got 2 more minutes. Okay, we have a motion
We're
and a
almost done.
second, and we're done with the commentary on that one. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next one. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that that within 60 days of the date of the county board approval, Zellhofer shall bring the the petitioner shall bring the floor drain located at the premises in compliance with the applicable code. Unless good cause is shown, the petitioner's failure to do the aforementioned within the time frame prescribed herein will result in revocation of the special use permit.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Seems a little redundant, but I get that we're trying to put a 60-day date on it so that it gets done in good time. But it is redundant because it is just reinforcing what already is the code.
Yeah, but as you said, there is some redundancy there and we've addressed him meeting the code. But yes, that's the intent, is to put the time frame on it.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other commentary? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I have just two more. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition got to clear up this wording. The condition B, that the petitioner's property, commonly known as 1749 Winding Road, Amboy, Illinois, must be in compliance with the requirements of I-2 General Industrial District, excluding the residential property or the residential aspect of said property. That would be the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Comments?
Just that we're trying to get a clarification and a handle of the provisions. The PUD is a special use within an agricultural area, but the function of it actually fits the I-2 criteria. And Mr. Zellhofer should be aware, or we can at least make sure that Mr. Zellhofer is aware of the conditions that he's required to operate under, in particular for that manufacturing facility.
So read that again, Alice, or Glenn, or.
Did you get it?
I got it.
Okay.
The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the petitioner's property, commonly known as 1749 Winding Road, Amboy, Illinois, must be in compliance with the requirements of the I-2 General Industrial District, excluding the residential aspect of the property.
Something to consider, you may want to put some type of buffer area around maybe the house or something, so you know exactly how far that residential aspect is. Just a thought.
That's where I'm at too, I think.
No, can't be 2 acres in this situation. It's part of the PUD. I just didn't want the residential property to have to comply. So
you're gonna say 100 feet off, I don't know how far away the industrial part of that is from the residence.
Well, when
So
you start looking at the refueling area and the parking area, not very.
And the material yard.
And the material yard are basically surround
so
that
maybe to the
residential
foundation
property.
of the home or whatever you want to use, but
I would accept a recommendation from the petitioner's attorney on that.
What are you trying to gain by this plan? Tell me what your motive is.
To set up the criteria, the basis under which that operation is being run. So that the conditions that he operates, what he can take, what he can bring into that, what's being done in those buildings has a specified code. No different, we talked about whether or not he was manufacturing the candy in there. I mean, I could also.
I've been talking too kind of quick.
Hours.
I could have tried to specifically exclude the lawn care and landscaping, but that's really kind of irrelevant. I think the sale of the candy is probably secondary. So it mostly to the operation of the manufacturing and construction needs to be addressed as I-2, which is the zoning that it would normally fall under. And I'm not trying to piecemeal everything out. And I'm aware, Mike, that you made, we did talk about the specific functions in there. But when you get to that manufacturing function, it operates under a specific code.
And that's the thing, from an enforcement perspective, we need to know what rules apply and which don't. So the area that's manufacturing, we need him to know, and we need to know what we're enforcing. So he knows what rules to follow, and we know which rules to enforce. If we don't specify those areas, then what zoning code is he required to follow?
No, I'm still going. Won't be for long, but that would be the case. I mean, it could be something simple as the lighting or the signage or
Correct.
even if he chooses to put a loading dock in there. Because I know right now he's loading out in the yard area. So there has to be, if something, if he's looking at that stuff, there has to be some determination of what code he's dealing with. Hopefully it would be good for him too, as well as the county. Well, that's what I was thinking. Maybe we should just adjourn until next Tuesday and or reset, well, but we're still gonna have to have him come back anyway. So.
There we go.
Finish this petition tonight. I'll yell, okay? What number am I? Right now on podium number 26. We didn't change that.
18.
If we finish this petition tonight, will it go before the county board on the 21st? So let's finish it. And then this petition and move forward.
I've got, which probably will go off shortly. This one's.
Is this how you limit county board meetings? I'm 22 now. That's it, Glenn. You're done.
Yep, right. Court. This is the podium.
So my question was, wouldn't,
Well, I was gonna say right now, Courtney, did you have any recommendation on the, or can we leave it simply as excluding the residential property? Or I said residential aspect, we could say residential I don't know. How do you want to? Well, you got a driveway there too.
Is there any way to make the whole piece industrial? I mean, I get that there's a residence in the center. It's owned by, I mean, it's all under common ownership. Is there any issue that you would see with that?
What if the residential had to comply with I-2 code as well?
Well, the question is, can you put a residence on an I-2 piece of property?
This is a mixed use PUD. We can do
Huh?
anything.
Right.
You can do that. So we really don't need to differentiate between the pieces. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
If the residential area is included in the entire industrial, and we don't differentiate between the two, what am I gonna have to do to the house to bring it up to compliance with an I-2?
This is, I think this is the one.
Do I?
why would you want I-2? Why would you want I-2?
I thought it was I-1.
Or what's that one?
You mean for the house?
For any of the property?
I thought it was PUD. I didn't know it was specified as I-2.
I didn't either.
Did you not designate it separately? I mean, that's easy enough to just finish saying I-2 general industrial and leave it there.
I would ask that we not delineate it, but I get that that might be a different opinion than what you guys have. the way that the ordinance reads, it can be used for residential, agricultural, commercial. So as long as we commit that part of it will be used for agricultural with a tillable land, there's a residence there and the business would be classified as industrial, we fit or fall under that umbrella.
Yeah, because if you classify it as I2, I cannot farm it, correct?
No. But I'm only talking, right now, I'm only talking about 1749. Because I do have the other, I've got that's separated here. Because I've got for 1760 and the code would be Ag 1. So that would allow you to continue.
You don't think Ag 1 would be more restrictive?
Not for the north side of the property.
I too always figured give them more things they can do than Ag 1 would. Right.
If you're satisfied with just leaving it without excluding the residential part, I got no problem with that.
My only concern would be not knowing what would have to be changed if the residential area is to be quote unquote compliant for I2.
So 17, just to make it clear, 1749 would be considered I2 up to the foundation of the house, which would then be considered residential. Is that about right?
Okay, so that instead of including the residential aspect, I could say up to the foundation of the residential property or the residential building.
That's fine.
Did you catch that? Yes, please. Yeah. That would be an amended motion based on discussion of the appropriate attorneys in the room.
Okay. So if that's the amended motion, do we have a second?
I second amendment.
Is there any discussion on the seconded amended motion?
I still don't like this. I don't, maybe I need to do a lot more homework on industrial, but it seems to me Ag would be a better. He's not getting any dust complaints or anything complaints now. We've spelled out in our PUD and everything that they've testified what they can, the parameters they're working under. I still not comfortable with your motion.
Well, I hope it actually not only is, I think it's good for zoning and following up, but hopefully it's good for him if he's doing anything to his property, or he can look at what he's restricted to or must do. And like I just, again, using the examples of even something as simple as lighting, And we've already talked about sound and odor and, those things. Those are under I2 and under ag, those would not be issues.
Any other comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed,
Aye.
motion carries.
Then, final one. The opposite side, the counter side to that, the Lee County ZBA, this motion, the Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the petitioner's property, commonly known as 1760 Winding Road, Amboy, Illinois, must be in compliance with the requirements of Ag 1 Agricultural District. That would be the motion.
Do we have a second on that one?
Second.
Second, very good. Any discussion on that one?
Does that make that less restrictive than the south side of the road?
Yes. And it also makes sure that there's no conflict with him continuing to farm the unused acreage.
Any other comments? Hearing none.
I'm a little confused. I thought this entire 10 acres was under one umbrella, one PUD. And it seems like now we're breaking this into multiple areas and multiple zonings. So am I understanding that the north side, even though currently there's no intent on developing the north side, I'd like to remain it tillable with the exception of the building that's there. You have that under Ag 1, but yet it's used as support as part of the existing, what we're calling industrial business. Does that mean does that limit what I can use the building that's on the north side of the road, commonly known as 1760? That's my first question. Second question is, does that mean in the future, 5 or 10 or 20 years down the road, if there was to be future expansion, the Ag 1 is going to inhibit developing because you're putting separate classifications on these properties?
Yep, actually on that northern half, if you were going to put any additional development into that, you'd have to come back for permitting on that.
Well, I don't mean building permitting. I'm talking about the zoning.
I don't think at this point, I don't know that there's any, based on your current intent, I don't know that there's any issue there.
Actually, if it stayed under a regular PUD and it was under an industrial application, you can still farm it.
I think to answer your question though, I'll look to Charlie to confirm it. As long as he still stayed under the PUD, if it fell under one of those 4 categories, he would be able to change the use and keep the PUD designation. That area of the PUD would change to reflect his use. So let's say you use the tillable ground and you put up an industrial building. He would still fall under the PUD, but that area would then be changed to reflect industrial use. Am I understanding that correctly? Yep. Does that answer your question?
So Charlie, would he, if he wanted to do some manufacturing in the north side, he would have to come in and get that changed from ag to industrial then?
But if we made it industrial, it doesn't mean he can't farm it. Simply because if you look at the industrial parks, the leftover land in the industrial parks is all rented out to farmers to farm. So there really is no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason not to just leave it under PUD and leave it under the industrial thing and not designate it necessarily as Ag 1. Because you can still do Ag 1 in an upper zoning category.
I don't disagree with that. I think if his use changed, like in the, like your example, Craig, I don't think he would have to come back because it falls under the umbrella of PUD that was granted.
Yeah, but if
And if you make the north side Ag 1, I have the problem of the existing 1760 building and the surrounding property is part of that business. So how is, if you're saying that restricts it, how is that gonna take care of the compliance problem I'm currently in?
But right now, that's basically a pole building and you're parking in there and you've got some materials. Well, you're right. You did say.
That's the lumber building.
Yeah.
That was what the big crux was of this whole situation. So,
Part of the use. I mean, from our position, I wouldn't want to separate it out into this part is used for ag, this part's industrial. I would just want it to fall under the PUD umbrella.
I think it could just stay under PUD as far as I'm concerned.
Keep it all at I2.
I think it makes more sense with that pole barn already being used to support the building.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that was going to be an issue, but maybe it is.
What do you want to do?
Well, at that point, I mean, these are in here to separate and I thought I was, I was helping, it appeared that I was helping with the zoning, give some definition to it and then still not restricting you on the property on the north side so that you could use it for agricultural use, but
well, I would rather forego the farming as opposed to creating a problem with the existing building and that side.
no,
If that's-
and Bruce makes a point that that the ag would still be available under the I2. Charlie. Do we make a motion to remove the last? I mean, we can vote on this and vote this part down. But as far as the last one, we've only addressed the 1749. We might as well just indicate that the PUD is I2 excluding
The foundation of the
The
residence.
foundation.
up to the foundation of the residential property.
Right.
So what's the best way to get rid of the last motion? This one we can vote down. How do we get rid of the last one? The motion that was before that.
Reconsider.
Okay,
Who
and
needs to make the motion? to
did we-
reconsider?
me. Did we get a second on this one? I was asking. We did get a second.
Okay,
Okay.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did second it.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion did not carry.
Motion to reconsider the previous And I'm not sure what number that is at this point. I've lost track of. It'd be, well, we excluded some others, so
Just say the previous one.
I'll just, yeah. Motion to reconsider the previously approved motion. Yeah, we got a second.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any comments? So based on the reconsideration, if we vote aye, it would be eliminating that previous motion. If we vote nay, it would be keeping it as it is. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then I will propose a new motion. The Lee County ZBA recommends to the Lee County Board that if the petition for a PUD is allowed, a condition be that the property with the property that comprises the PUD (1749 Winding Road, Amboy) and 1760 Winding Road, Amboy must be in compliance with the requirements of I-2 General Industrial up to the foundation of the residential property.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion on this one?
Still need it explained to me how that I-2 would be would be better than Ag 1. My understanding of I-2 is that it creates lots more businesses that he could run under I-2 than he can under Ag. So I don't know whether the fact that he stated what his businesses are in the testimony would rule over that, or the fact that he now has I-2, he has more options. But that's spot zoning again.
Just because it has an I-2 zoning doesn't mean you can't put a commercial business on it or another type of business.
That's my point.
It's not a,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Say that again.
so I don't know that, I don't entirely agree with what you said, Alice, because I think he's a lot, under the current Ag 1, it's a special use for a PUD. It's not I-2.
And
But under the code, he can do the PUD as a special use under his Ag 1. So I don't know that we need to change the zoning to an I-2 because it's already allowable as a special use under the code. Am I making sense?
yeah,
Okay.
in compliance with,
Okay. And so it's not spot zoning because we're not giving it the I-2 classification.
yes.
I'm with you.
So how's it gonna show in the zoning books and? I That helps.
See?
That helps.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Yep.
Read the motion one more time. Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Your motion has been passed by the zoning board. We'll go to the full county board on, what's that? April 21st. And at this time, we will recess this session until after the county board. And once the county board makes their decision, then we can end this meeting. Okay? In the meantime, we're going to recess now, and we will come back on Tuesday, the 12th at 6 o'clock. Mr. Zellhofer's next petition.
Thank you. You're gonna get tired of seeing me sooner or later.
You're gonna get tired of seeing us. All right,
Congratulations. Thank you.
thank you. So, you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?